What's good, everybody? My name is Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. Today, you and I are going to be talking about what do you do when you're stuck on a track. Yay! There's pretty much three options that you can do, and plus I'm going to be leaving a tip for you to be able to kind of like help you out with figuring things out if you don't necessarily know what one of those three decisions are. But before we do that, I've got lots of sounds that I'm going to be playing for you today. I actually have two finished tracks in a single project that we will be using as a case study. And if you want to support the channel, then check out alchemy.com, where actually the sounds that I've used in Faceplant are available of this new drum and bass preset pack that I did from our challenge. With the advertisement out of the way, let's talk about this. So you are stuck on a track. You don't know what to do. You've got an 8-bar loop and you're like, where do I go from here? That happens to all of us. The number one thing that I want to mention is duplicate and variate. Duplicate and variate. And that has a huge world of context. But to put things simply, you basically need to take something that you have from one section here. So let's say I've got this particular thing right here, which is my main section. So take a listen. Right? So with this, I've taken this section, I've duplicated it, and actually elaborated on the music in the second section. So So all you have to do is take something that works or that you really like within the first part and move it over to the second part. Now this can be melodic motifs, it can be a sound, it can be a groove, it can be something that is a very minor change that could be like, yo, I'm just going to add hi-hats to this section. It doesn't have to be super contrasty. It can be, but within the duplicate and variate, or within writing another section, there's basically three options that you have. There's four. The fourth one I'm just going to give away. It's you give up. Don't do that. But what we want to talk about here is this aspect of where does it go? So either A, you duplicate and variate, where we covered this already too, where you take something from your first section and relay it into the next. You B, write a completely different section and then figure out how they connect. So let's go ahead and cover this one, because in this particular tune, we went from the super melodic section to something that is completely different. So now I want to talk about this for just a second, because if you do this, then what ends up happening is you have two completely separate sections, and now you've got a piece of the puzzle, which you can see that this is scary part, but I have been like, all right, how do I lead this section back into this section? And the answer with that is you duplicate and variate. So you take some elements from this section, you put it in the middle, you take some elements from this section and you put it in the middle. And with this transition in particular, the reason why it helps connect things so well is because there's lots of silence and lots of unfolding saying, hey, there's a big long change. Now you can, in theory, make these two connect back to back, but in order to do that, you have to do something that is called foreshadowing. You have to have something that's going to signify a change. And if you listen to this right here, the way that I'm building tension, it's doing that in a way that to me feels more natural. But listen to the chord progression here about how I'm utilizing this along with other risers and stuff to create something that's like, hey, something's getting ready to happen. See how it's slowly building up over time. Now, put this in your pocket, because I'm going to come back to this in just a second. But utilizing something like that is saying, hey, something's going to move. And if I'm trying to make this kind of blend faster, you're going to have to play it by ear and see what the appropriate time to make that change is. At the same time, having anything like this will help you figure out what to do next. But if you write two completely different separate sections, then a lot of times you can be like, all right, now this is a game of figuring out how these two meet. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because you don't need to write music or compose in a linear fashion. It's more so of a means of, hey, how do I want to express, or what, what parts are coming into my head, right? So the other thing, which is the number 3, is sometimes you might just want to make completely new material in a completely different song. So over here, I actually have a part 2 of this track, which is similar but also different. So if we scroll over to part 2, I have something like this. Now the thing is I probably could, maybe if I forced it, try to find a way to make all of that link together. But shout out to Zane for kind of helping me decide what I wanted to do with this track. This is already 4.5 minutes about, and so within this we already have tons of stuff that the track is pretty much complete. In fact, I wanted to write a halftime section to this, but it was just becoming too much. So instead, I could either do a part 3 to this, or if you are just like, I want to utilize this material, or maybe I just am in the mood to write something else, like, don't be afraid to start a new project, or maybe take really small pieces of this and relay it to something that's completely new. So what do you do if you don't know how to duplicate and variate? You don't know, none of this stuff is working, or you don't know what to do next. This is the most important part of this video, in my opinion, because it's a lot easier to be like, I know what I want to do, versus like having no direction. The most important thing is exactly what I was talking about earlier, with basically leaving your stuff on a cliffhanger. So let's say you write a section. Let me find where main section 1 is again. And you're like, all right, I've got up to this part written out, but I don't know where I want it to go. Having something that is building a transition over time, and this is something that you'll hear in my music a lot. Lots of risers, lots of stuff that helps things connect. So take a listen to just this sound. Right? Different things kind of like that really help with saying, hey, I'm going to signify a change here. And what I want you to do whenever you have something like this is, like, let's say you've only written this main section, you have no idea where to go next. The first thing that I would go for actually is to try to speed run an intro, even if it's stupid, because what ends up happening is if you have an intro and you have a main section, you have a song, because all you have to do in order to finish the song, in theory, or finish the arrangement, is do like a reverb, a reverb blast, the song's done. Or, take what you did from the intro and basically deconstruct what's happening in the outro. Or if you have an outro, then you can deconstruct what happens in the intro, or, vice versa. And the thing is too, is like, if you have a main section, you pretty much have a song, because you can literally just have a reverse sound and then go right into the thing. It becomes so much easier once you have the core idea of the song, because that's the main idea. You need to find a way to get into it, then you need to find a way to get down to it, or to get out of it. When you have or expect or desire multiple sections, but you don't know what to do next, you need to make a cliffhanger. You need to do foreshadowing, and that basically means giving some kind of clue of either A, what's going to happen next, or B, that something is getting ready to change. And so with that, once you kind of have that and you don't know what to do, step away from the DAW. Doesn't need to be like, it could be for 5 minutes, it could be for 10 minutes, you could put it away for a week, whatever. But what you want to focus on is practicing, imagining, or audiating. Thanks to Corey for this. But practice audiating, where do I want the track to go? Where do I want it to go? And initially, I didn't know what I wanted this to be. That's not true. I actually did know what I wanted this to be. But in a lot of cases, if I want to add more content to the track, for one, don't add content just because you want to add content. If the song is done and it's a good idea and it's this long, just let it be that. But what I did was I stepped away and I had these other parts written out to where I have notes. And making notes with dummy clips is one of the best things that you can do. You will see them littered out. See, build-up section right here. I didn't know what I wanted there other than, hey, I wanted this to be a build-up section. And some of these other cases, I don't know where exactly, but you'll see music break right here. So these are little notes that I wrote to myself of like different things, change the music, that I wanted to signify with stuff that I wanted to be different, but I didn't necessarily have the context in my head. But basically, audiation is practicing imagining what you want to do, your intention. It's practicing intention with what it is. Now, I've talked about this in several other videos about how to actually audiate, especially with experimental sounds or things that you've never made. It's about placement. I've got a 2-hour video on it actually that you should go check out. That being said, once you kind of have that aspect of audiation, you're able to marry the sense of discovery with the sense of intention and eventually help complete this. With all of these, you know, it's if it's just not working out, the number one thing that I would say is simplify. If you're trying to do too much, it just might not be ready for you, or, you know, whatever. But don't be too attached to the pieces of music that you have, because I believe that, and I got this also from Corey, but she's over there, but if you are a creative person, then you create in abundance. We don't really believe that there is a muse. We don't really believe that it comes to you. That's some bullshit. Long story short, if you're a creative person, you're constantly creative. So submit to your creativity and understand that on certain days you do have a capacity, but don't let it come to you. Go to it. You have to go to it, you know? Because if you do that and you allow yourself to constantly create, even if it's in a completely different place than what you're used to, then you will allow that to kind of channel through and just be creative. It's something that we can talk more about in a future video, but it's really good advice that she gave me, and like I took that so close to heart, and it has helped me write so much more music. I've written over 40 tracks this year. They're not all great, but not all of them are going to be great, but they got written out. And I used to struggle with beat block for years. And her and I had so many talks. I had so many talks with other people that I was taking lessons from. Like, man, I just can't get this out. And it's because I became too selective. I became too judgmental or too picky with the things that I was making, as opposed to just letting myself create. And if you recall, in November, 30-day challenge, you know, and even last month, 30-day drum and bass challenge. So I'm just constantly writing. In November's challenge, I forced myself to finish whatever I wrote every single day. So short bodies of work, intro, main section, outro. For last month's challenge, it was 30 days of drum and bass. Write an 8-bar loop, which is kind of the opposite, or just write something that is a drum and bass drop every single day. Doing these, statistically, you are extremely likely to write something that you like. It's just the way that it is. And when you're talking about connecting ideas and finishing this or whatever, you know, if you've got an idea that you already like, again, I'll summarize: duplicate and variate, write a completely different section, figure out how they connect, or start something new. Or take the material that you have and write a completely new track with it. You know, there's nothing wrong with resampling the entire idea, which, if you've watched my resampling video, Talking Head, the music is good, but it doesn't really fit with the way that it's working out. We'll toss it into, you know, a Beam or Portal or something, make something completely different out of the music. That's what I did for part 2. I resampled all of the music, like the musical stuff in this section, and threw it through Beam. And then with part 2, I ended up getting this really pretty motif. You know what I'm saying? So it just helped give me a new idea for new material to just keep going. And that's what the most important thing is to just keep going. There's a lot of really good advice that I've had, or that I feel like I've given you. Like, this is really high quality stuff that I value within my own music production and composition. I owe a lot of thanks to a lot of people for helping me out with this, Corey included, Chi and Zane and Cage. Like, these are the things that we discuss. Shout out to that person on Reddit that said that I don't have any compositional skills. Double fuck you. Let's see you do better than this. But if you like the video, then please do me a favor and actually hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and check out Alckemy.com if you like cool basses and stuff, kind of like the ones that you heard in this track. With that being said, I'm going to play this track out, and this will hopefully give you some kind of inspiration. And again, this is a direct FU to those people that keep giving me those hateful comments.